Hello, my name is Rovell Gaither and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today on my channel, I'm doing my first ever sewing tutorial and I'm going to be showing you guys how I make all of my name tags / nameplates to brand all of my bags. And a lot of people have asked me if I can show this process and I've been saying, I'm going to film a video, So today I'm finally showing you guys the process. So these are the name tags that I make. They're really simple. It's nothing too crazy to it. And the reason why when I first started making bags, why I decided to make my name tags this way, because I know a lot of bag makers that I was watching, they would use metal nameplates that they were having made, manufactured overseas, and they were getting them shipped to them. But I didn't have money to do that. So I came up with this method of making my own name tags, and it kind of just stuck with me. It became part of my brand. So really all you need to do this is an embroidery machine, a little bit of interfacing, which is optional depending on what materials you're using, and then some double-sided tape. That's what I use. It's a really easy thing, nothing too crazy. And then when you sew them on to your pieces, it's something like this. So they're really dope. I love it. And the thing that I like about these two is that you don't have to just use them for bags. You can use them for shirts. You can use them for name tags. You can use them for jackets, jeans. It's so optional. This method of making your own nameplates and nameplates or name tags. So if you do want to learn how to make these, stick around and watch. And this is my first tutorial, so bear with me. It may not be the best, but I show you guys how to do this. So if you want to watch, make sure you give this a big thumbs up. Leave a comment down below. Let me know if this was helpful to you, and let's get into the tutorial. Let me stop. Let's get into the tutorial. All right, so I'm starting off with the first thing that I do when I'm creating my name tags. And I have my denim laid out, and it depends on what size you want your name tag to be or what size I want my name tag to be. I have two different size embroidery hoops. So this is the smaller one, and then this is the more bigger one. I use this one for if I'm making more bigger bags. This is like my standard size name tag one that I use. So today we're going with the standard size one. So the first thing that I do is I lay my embroidery hoop out on the right side of my fabric, and I just kind of do a rough outline. I cut bigger than my hoop or cut more fabric than what I need. I do not use a pattern or anything. I really just eyeball this and cut it out. Super simple. So this is how the first step is. And then I take my embroidery stabilizer that I use. I use tearaway stabilizer on the back of this. It works really well. I get it off of Amazon. So I just lay my fabric on top of my stabilizer like this. And then I go ahead and cut it out. And then the next thing I do is I normally go over to my iron and I press my fabric so that it's not wrinkly or anything while I'm embroidering, and I don't get any wrinkles in the stitches. So I'm gonna go over to my iron, press this really quick, and then I'll be back. All right, so I pressed it as good as I can. So I'm just gonna open up my hoop. And if you've used an embroidery machine or you have an embroidery machine, you pretty much know what I'm doing. I'm just gonna hoop my fabric. It's the same way that you hoop all fabric. I don't do anything special. I just, put the underside and then put the top side like this. And then I tighten it a little bit, and then I pull my fabric tight in the embroidery hoop so it's not any bubbles or puckers, because if it is, when you go to embroider on your machine, you're gonna stitch puckers and bubbles in your fabric. Not bubbles, but puckers in your fabric, and your stitches could be all wonky when you take it out the hoop. So you want to make sure that your fabric is nice and tight in the hoop. And when I was learning about hooping fabric, a lot of people say when you hoop it, you want to pull it tight enough to where if you flick it, it kind of sounds like a drum. So it's not as tight as it should be because it doesn't have that drum sound. So that's how I know I need to pull it a little bit tighter. This is probably good right here. That's good. So this is my fabric hooped right now. So now what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna go over to my embroidery machine and then put in all the settings that I need to put in to get this embroidered out. So let's go do that. All right, so I have my embroidery machine on and I have the fabric hooped onto the hoop for the machine. And the embroidery machine that I use is a Brother PE800. I got it off of Amazon. It works amazing. I think I paid maybe like $600, $700 for it, which is really not that bad of a price for an embroidery machine. It works amazing. This is what I use to embroider all of my name tags on. So I already have my embroidery file for my name on my USB for the embroidery. So I do not have to go into software and try to type out my name and get the sizing correct. The size that I use is already on here, so I normally just go to my USB portion, and then this is the file. Oops, child, I almost deleted it. This is the file right here that I use, and the size for my standard size name tags are all the same. It's 1 inch in height and 3 3/4 inches in width. That's the size for my standard ones. This is what I use for most bags, and then for the larger ones, I think it's 6 3/4 inches in length and maybe 1 1/4 inch in height. I can't remember. So I do not have to play around. If you're doing your own, you may want to, adjust the size of your name to, fit the project that you're doing. This is just normally what I do. So I'm going to go ahead and send this over. And that's all that I have to do. I'm going to go over, move the camera over, and it's going to embroider it out. And then I'll come back and show you what I do. All right, so I just took the hoop out of the machine. It took about 4 minutes to embroider out. So now what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna take the fabric out of the hoop, and then I'm going to tear away this stabilizer. And I always love tearing away stabilizer. It's just so satisfying. So really what stabilizer for embroidery machines do is it just helps to stabilize your stitches. That's why it's called stabilizer, so that they're not all wonky and like all types of stuff. Because when you're embroidering on fabric, stitches can become wonky, and stabilizer just kind of helps, add that layer of stabilization. So now that I have it all out of the hoop, normally what I go ahead and do, and that's what I'm going to do today. Well, not normally, this is what I do all the time. You see these little jump stitches? I go ahead and I cut those. Some people honestly leave their jump stitches in. I hate when I see jump stitches on like embroidery. It really bothers me because it's like you could just take the few extra little minutes and cut them, and it makes your embroidery look so much cleaner and neater. So I don't cut all the way. I cut them just to kind of get one side loose, and then I use my thread burner and I burn the thread, because you get a way cleaner cut. Because if you try to cut as close to your fabric as possible, honestly, you're not going to get that good of a cut, and the embroidery thread will just over time start to fray, and it just won't look good. So I use this embroidery burner, not embroidery burner, I use this thread burner, and it also helps so that the stitches or the loose threads don't fray over time. So it's just a really good tip. And I got this thread burner from Michaels, I want to say. They have them on Amazon. You can get them at Michaels. They're amazing. I love them. They just make life so much easier when you're sewing. I definitely recommend getting a thread burner. So now that I have all of those burned, I also go on the back and also cut the little jump stitches, just so that when I go and fuse my interfacing on, there's no stitches and stuff being under the interfacing. And I also go ahead and rip up the stabilizer that's in the little grooves too. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this off, and then I'll check back in and show you what I'm gonna do next. All right, so now that I have all of my threads burnt and cut, what I do now is I go ahead and I map out a box around the stitching, around the embroidery, so that I can cut that out. So with my name tags or nameplates, whatever you want to call them, I like it to be a 1/2 inch border around the embroidery. I just think it's a really nice size and everything, and it just looks really clean. So before I came up with this method of doing it, I used to just kind of eyeball it and cut it out that way. So I'm going to show you what I do if I can find my pin. So I have this 1 inch ruler right here. This is what I use to map out my things. So because I like a 1/2 inch border, and I hem the ends with a 1/2 inch, I'm going to use this 1 inch ruler, and I'm just going to go ahead and pretty much line it up and map out 1 inch on all sides. And sometimes this can be a little tricky, because if you didn't put your fabric in the hoop straight all the way, kind of like what I didn't do this time, your embroidery can look a little bit crooked to the shape of the actual fabric. So you kind of have to pay attention to that as well. So now I have my border mapped out. So it is a 1-inch border all the way around, but once I hem that 1/2 inch, it's gonna end up being a 1/2 inch. So now I'm gonna go ahead and cut this out. I'm just gonna cut directly on all of these lines that I just marked out. And honestly, making name tags is really, name tags, nameplates, whatever you want to call them, they're really easy to make. But I just know that, you know, a lot of people ask me how I do them. And I know it is a difficult thing to try to learn, because I remember when I was first trying, I couldn't find any videos on how to do it. So I was just doing trial and error. And this way works amazing for me. So here I am bringing out a tutorial. So as you can see, now it is cut out super dope. So it's 1 inch all the way around. So 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch. So now what I do after that is I actually take a piece of woven fuse interfacing and I fuse it to the back of this, just to give the denim a little bit of structure, so it's not, you know, so floppy and all that stuff, even though it won't matter because it's sewed on. I just think it ups the quality a little bit and it gives it a nicer feel. So I'm gonna go ahead and fuse a piece of woven fuse to the back of this, and then I'll check back in once I do that and show you what I'm gonna do. All right, so I'm back from fusing my woven fuse to the back of my denim, and this is what woven fuse looks like. It's really just like, you know, a cotton fusible interfacing. And if you don't have woven fuse, you can use, and I'm pretty sure they're the same thing. I have not used SF101, but I know other bag makers compare SF101 and woven fuse to each other. So there's that. So I went ahead and fused that on, and it gave it a little bit more shape. So now what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna do the same thing on the back that I did to the front. I'm going to take my 1-inch ruler and I'm going to just mark all the way around the edge, but on the back side. And I'm doing a 1/2 inch hem, and these lines that I'm doing are pretty much just guidelines for when I fold my fabric over. It makes it a lot easier so I don't have to try to measure out by eye a 1/2 inch. So I know you're probably like, oh, if you're doing a 1/2 inch, why are you marking 1 inch? You'll see once I show you kind of what's going on. So there are my 1-inch markings. So now I'm going to take my double-sided tape, which if you don't use double-sided tape, honestly, I feel bad for you. This stuff right here is amazing. I use it for so many things in sewing. So what I'm going to use it for today is to hold the hem down when I fold it over. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some on the edge. And I get my double-sided tape from Amazon. You can get it from Wawak, whatever you call it, where you can get like a bunch of sewing supplies. I just get it from Amazon. It's called basting tape. It's the 1/4 inch one, and it's really not expensive. I think it's like $11 for 50 yards, which is amazing. So now that I have the tape on the end and I peeled the backing off, I'm just gonna fold it over to this line right here. And it's exactly a 1/2 inch hem, and that's why I did the 1-inch markings on the back, because it just makes it easier for when I have to fold it over. I don't have to try to worry about measuring it out or anything. And then I just take this seam hammer right here and I just smooth it out to make sure that tape is sticking. And I'll show you the right side. So this is the right side, and you can see it's a clean edge along that bottom. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing for all the other sides. And this is just one of the ways that I brand my bags, do a nameplate. I also do one where, you know, I embroider directly onto the flap, which I'll probably do another video for that, because that's a whole different type of thing. That's in like how you make your pattern and stuff. And I actually just, I feel like mastered, not even mastered, because I can still get better, but have, you know, got good at being able to have my name on the flap and have it nice and centered. So doing the same thing, and then I'm just gonna take the seam hammer, do that, and this is what it's looking like again from the front. So this is the bottom, and then this is the top, all nice and clean. And I'm gonna go ahead and do the sides. And the sides sometimes can be a little bit more stubborn because they are thicker, because you have this denim right here and this denim that you're gonna try to fold over onto itself. So the corners are normally a little bit thicker. But it doesn't, you know, affect it or anything. That's just one thing that I've noticed. I'm gonna put the tape Peel the back off. And then I'm gonna line it up to that line right there. Like that. I'm just gonna go ahead. Same thing. And then that's that end, and I'm gonna go ahead and do the other end. I mean, this is just a really simple way to add your name onto your pieces. It doesn't have to be bags. Like, you know, if you're a designer, I also use this same technique to, you know, put my name tags on the inside of my bags. I make little labels that say made by Rovell Gaither. I put those on the insides of my bags, and I do them all the same way. This is really just a way, you know, for if you have an embroidery machine to make your own labels and not have to pay. It is a little bit more time consuming, but you know, if you don't have access to getting labels and things like that, this is a way you can do it yourself. So this is how it looks. It's done. Well, of course I would have to sew it on, but this is what it's looking like. So I'm going to show you that it's a 1/2 inch border. So you can see, oh, you probably can't see. So that's 1/2 inch right there. And this bottom G is where it's supposed to be at. And then 1/2 inch right there. 1/2 inch right there. So it's a 1/2 inch border all the way around. I like the 1/2 inch. So this one is done, and then I have to do a few more because I'm actually filming this video during the process of me working on some bags, and I have 2 other name tags that I'm gonna go ahead and work on. I didn't actually even show me working on these ones, but these are 2 other name tags that I have to work on. So I'm gonna show you how I actually attach the name tag and how I line it up and all that stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish some prepping, and then I'll show you how I sew them on. Alright, so I finally have my front panel piece that I'm going to be sewing my name tag onto, and again, I'm currently working on some pieces, so I'm just knocking this video out as I'm working on them. If you do want to watch me make these bags that I'm working on currently, you can watch my next video, which should be up pretty soon after I upload this one. So this is a name tag that's going on this one. So the first thing that I normally do is I measure out how far from the bottom I want my name tag to be. And I'm going to do 2 1/4 inches from the bottom, so that after I sew everything together, it's going to be exactly 2 inches from the bottom, since I'm using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm just going to find the 2 1/4 on the bottom and make sure everything is straight. And then I'm just going to measure everything out from the ends. Oops, you know what? I skipped a step. First, never mind. I need to put my double-sided tape. So again, this is another reason why I use double-sided tape, because these pins, this denim that I use gets super thick, and I can't use clips or pins to hold this name tag down in place while I sew. Every time I try to use pins, they just bend. They don't go through the denim because it's just so many layers and it's super thick. So I use a double. Oh my gosh, this is literally so ghetto. I don't know why my microphone cut off, so I'm doing a voiceover, but I was pretty much saying I just use double-sided tape to help attach and hold my nameplate down while I'm sewing so it doesn't move around. So all I did was I just put the double-sided tape on, stuck it down, and then I measured out, you know, to make sure that it was even from the bottom and on the side. So sorry, this is so ghetto. I promise you it wasn't my fault. I don't know why. I don't know why this is happening to me. Okay, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My freaking microphone cut off in the middle of me talking, and I didn't notice until I was watching the clip back and realized that my audio wasn't working. But pretty much all that I did was I went ahead and finished putting the double-sided tape on the back of this, and I just measured out 2 1/4 inches from the bottom, and I made sure that I was both equal distance away from the edge on both ends to make sure it was fully centered. And so that's really all that I do to pretty much place where I want my name tags to be at. Of course, it's different depending on, you know, where I want to put it out on a bag. Sometimes I'll fold the centerpiece in half to find the center point, and then I'll fold it again this way to find the center point that way, so I can have the direct center if I want to place it on the center. I kind of use different methods depending on how I'm putting the name tag on or where I'm placing it. I'm going to go ahead and move over to my machine and kind of show you how I sew this on, because I do use a method. I keep saying method. I sew away so that I don't have any back stitching showing on the exterior of this name tag, because I used to back stitch on this, and I always hated how you can see the back stitching and where I back stitched at, because my eyes always drew to the stitching because it was just darker in that area. So I watched a few YouTubers, and I learned a way to sew it so that you don't see any back stitching. So I'm gonna go over to my machine, show you how I sew it, and yeah. Okay, so I hope you can see this really good. So what I do first is I always pull my top thread and my bobbin thread pretty long so that I have enough thread and space to work with when I'm done. So I always just, I top stitch regularly. I just top stitch this on, and I do use a number 5 stitch length when I'm top stitching. And what I also do too is that I push these little corners right here in as far much as I can so that they're not sticking out. And then I pretty much just sew. Normally you would backstitch, but for this method I don't backstitch because again, I don't want the backstitching to be noticeable on the exterior. So I just stitch all the way around. Of course you want to make sure you're stitching nicely so that, especially if you're using a contrast color thread, you definitely want to make sure your stitching looks really good. My favorite part of sewing is top stitching. I love it so much. I don't know why, I just love top stitching. A lot of people that I talk to who sew say that they hate top stitching or that it makes them really nervous, but me, I really love it. I think it just really takes your pieces to like the next level. And it doesn't take long to sew them on either. It's a really small item, really simple. You're literally just sewing straight lines. So since I didn't backstitch, what I do is I pull this top thread, the one that I left super long, I pull it to the front, and then I keep sewing, and I sew, and I sew, and I sew until I get around to this area again. And then I kind of lift my foot. I don't know if you can see it really well. And then I walk my last stitch and put my needle down directly in the position where I first started. And I do it like, I just put the needle down and then I remove the fabric from under the machine. And then you want to make sure you pull a bunch of thread out too so you can have enough room to work with. And then I'm going to turn it over to the back. Okay, so I have it flipped over now. And these are the 2 threads that we originally started with, or the undersides of the threads. So you make sure they're long because you're going to pull them. And you're going to, when you pull it, there's going to be little loops. Those are the stitches that are on the front, or the threads that are left on the front. You want to pull those to the back. And what that does is it pulls the excess thread that you have hanging in the front all the way to the back. And sometimes it gets annoying because your stitches kind of get caught. I really hope this is making sense. But you pull them to the back and you can see it's a clean sew all the way around on the front. No back stitching, no threads because you pulled it to the back. And then what I do is I knot these so that it doesn't come undone. I knot it in the back. Oops. Since I didn't backstitch, this is like my way of securing the threads from coming undone. Knot them. And then after I knot them, I take my thread burner and I burn the loose ends of the thread. And I also kind of melt the threads together so that this knot does not end up coming undone, because once they're melted together, it ain't going nowhere. So then I just take my thread burner, like so. Oops. And then that is it. The name plate is on there. So that's how I do my name tags. It's really simple, nothing too crazy. It's a really easy process. So this is the end of the video. If you did like it or if it was helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below. Let me know if this was useful to you, and let me know what projects y'all be working on, what you be making. Let me know. I love seeing other creators and what they do. So I'm gonna go because I do have to continue sewing. But again, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notifications because I do upload other videos as well. So if you did enjoy, thank you for watching, and I shall see you in my next video that's probably gonna be up soon after this one. So deuces.